Hi. We're here to present our paper, Certification Systems for Machine Learning, Lessons from Sustainability. I'm Michael Veal at UCL.
And I'm Kira Mattis at HKUST.
And we were really motivated to make this paper in regulation and governance on the basis of lots of conversations, right, that we had over many years now, I think, both about certification systems more generally and how they function and what they're good for and not good for, but also as we've moved, we're both scholars who look at the intersection of areas of technology and areas of policy, and as we've moved in different spaces, we have, I think, quite a wide view on the promises of these systems. And I've been working on machine learning in this area and seen a lot of standards, whereas Kira, you've been in a different area, right?
So I've been working around issues around sustainability certifications in a variety of different industries, including things like green buildings and also coffee and textiles. So huge range of different sorts of products and supply chains, but obviously very different from machine learning in a lot of their characteristics, but perhaps not their ubiquity.
Yeah, so some people might think, I think, that machine learning has, what's the similarity between a coffee bean and a machine learning model, or AI, as some people will say in like grandiose terms. They seem like, on the face of it, really quite different things, and that would limit the lessons we can really learn from them. But when you dig into machine learning a bit more and you start to understand it in the context of the business models that operate around it and the practices that are engaged with it and that constitute it, you actually see a lot more similarities than differences. You've got a lot of characteristics in machine learning which are really hard for consumers, whether that's a business or an end user having, say, a decision made about them, to observe upstream, like the privacy of the people whose data was used to train that system, or the environmental cost of training. You've got a lot of labeling, for example, of harmful, really quite horrific content in social media networks, for example, terrorist content or child sexual abuse imagery, where the labelers themselves may not have great psychological support, for example. And all those things are really hard to observe. And you've also got how the whole system performs. Is it biased and discriminatory? And those things can operate in nuanced ways, which make it really hard to observe from the view of a business deploying a machine learning model they bought from somewhere else, or the view of a consumer who is consuming a service that is involved with machine learning. And that's similar, right, to coffee and similar areas like that.
So what we realize is that there are these, we'll call them supply chain similarities, in an odd, kind of surprising kind of way between these systems. So when we think about the environmental impacts or the labor issues around something like the production of coffee or of textiles, and attempts to figure out how you can make both standards that improve these key issues, in this case, sustainability issues around working conditions, environmental impacts, clearer downstream to people who are buying or using these products, and create systems, real regulatory systems of standards, but also monitoring and enforcement. And for that, there have been several decades now of both experience and, of course, study of what works and what doesn't. And so while sustainability certifications have had, in fact, some both kind of tangible environmental impacts, although once again, with big caveats about what they can and cannot do, which are very important to understand. And we've also seen that they've had important institutional impacts that are important lessons about how they can help build relationships within networks, create spaces for developing standards that have legitimacy across borders in spaces where it's very difficult to get formal government coordination. And in fact, you rely on the technical expertise of actors within your supply chain in order to do this well. So with that in mind, we came up with a kind of set of important learnings and lessons, to really expand the space, because one of the things we found is that a lot of the thinking around the certification or standards of machine learning really was taking lessons from what we knew about what had happened with networking standards previously, which are in fact a much narrower space, and we're all about kind of network consensus and interoperability. And so once those standards start to emerge, they become self-reinforcing, because the only way for all the parts of the system essentially to talk to each other, right, for data to get sent and et cetera, was for everyone to be on standard. That's not going to work the same way in machine learning. And so what sustainability certification also offers is more insight into how you can both set the standard, but also deal with the constant, unending problem of having to do monitoring of impacts and constant enforcement or kind of certification of what's actually going on when the system isn't going to be self-reinforcing in quite the same way. So that is where we come to in this paper. And so if you want to find out more, we highly recommend that you go through and read it.
Yeah, we put together, hopefully, these lessons. And when we've been doing this, we've been trying to draw from a wide variety of practices in this emerging field of machine learning, and also across sustainability standards for commodities in particular. And try to link also literatures from computing, like what's possible, what's not, debunk some myths around how much you can really track data and how much you can really apply standards to moving software objects, like you might do a coffee bean. And draw some of those parallels in that context, hopefully to inform organizations like people are using these network standards at ISO or IEEE or IETF, these typical fora for regulating the internet largely, and say, look, you've probably got some lessons from elsewhere that you can pick up, and we hope this piece can inform those debates going forwards before they just have to relearn those lessons in the hard way by living them. So with that, yeah, we'll hopefully read the paper, and do send us any feedback if you have it, and we'd love to continue the conversation about this hopefully important topic for the future. Thanks, everyone.